everyone. I'm Dr. Nadia Azar with Drum Talk TV here at the NAMM Show 2019. We're doing our third live Q&A session, and joining me in the booth for the session is John Clardy, the drummer for Terra Milos, and also a previous Drummer Lab study participant. John, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so we're going to talk a little bit. I'm going to ask John some questions about his experience with playing-related injuries. If you're watching out there and you want to join in, send us your comments, tell us where you're watching from, and go ahead and ask us any questions you have about drumming-related injuries or comment in about your experiences. So, John, I wanted to talk to you about playing-related injuries. Have you ever had an injury that you would attribute to like repetitive use or overuse from playing the drums?
Yeah, absolutely. And, main kind of one, I guess the longest running one is like a lot of people's shoulder issues, some hip issues as well. And, that was a big part of me looking into like, okay, how does like a professional athlete get ready to go do what they do? Because I need to make this a little more sustainable from a physical standpoint to be able to keep doing what I love as long as I can.
Absolutely. So you had shoulder issues and hip issues. Did you get a diagnosis for any of those?
I did, yeah. I had gone to the doctor. Fortunately, this was when I was a teenager and, was on my parents' health insurance and things that could go do that. But, the first thing that my shoulder got diagnosed with was just tendonitis. Different doctors called it rotator cuff syndrome, all kinds of different things like that. So, it's a little bit tough to pin something like that down, especially as many parts as there are in the shoulder and things like that. And so with all those different diagnoses, was like, okay, well, I'm going to also have to try out some different means of, treating this as well and see what works for me, basically.
So what did you try out for your shoulder injury? What did you do to try to get rid of the tendonitis or to deal with the issues?
Well, unfortunately, the first thing the doctor does is get you taking pills and things like that. So, fortunately, it was just anti-inflammatories and things like that. But got into trying, different kind of strengthening exercises and things like that. Sometimes with dumbbells, sometimes with resistance bands. Being better with, doing a dynamic warm-up before I play, and then doing static stretches afterwards. Things like that, but also adjusting my playing mechanics and, okay, what am I doing specifically that's causing me this, and how can I adjust as necessary, basically.
Awesome. So how did you go about sorting that out with your playing mechanics? Did you have someone come and watch you, or did you videotape yourself to try to figure that out?
I had basically both in a lot of ways. Filming myself with a GoPro helps and things like that, but seeing a good physical therapist, or ideally, a drum instructor that has an idea of what they're talking about. You got to be careful because doctor's a doctor, and that's ideally the be-all, end-all with that. But somebody that's familiar with the specific motions and things like that definitely helps out a lot.
And that's a good point, because I think a lot of the time doctors kind of get a bad rep, like, oh, they don't know anything. It's like, well, no, they're not specialists in rehab. They're specialists in diagnosing. They're your first stop. And then, like you said, you got to go to the right professional to get the help that you need, whether that's a physiotherapist or a chiropractor or a sport therapist or what have you, to help you take care of the problem, right? So, awesome. So I'm going to check with Dory. Do we have any comments or any questions from anyone out there? Okay. Well, then we'll just continue on. So we talked about your shoulder injury. What do you know? Maybe you can tell us a little bit more specifically about what you changed about your playing mechanics, like from those observations and videos. What did you notice that you were doing that you made adjustments to?
One of the biggest things for me was not, and any drum student of mine has probably heard me use this exact term, but that you don't want to be doing like a lumberjack chop when you play. So learning to use the different parts of your physiology in coordination with each other. So something like more like a whipping motion, like what people call Muller technique for your hands. That was a really, really big one for me. And also just playing relaxed. That's such a big part. because especially if you're trying to play hard, and someone like me grew up idolizing Dave Grohl and people like that, want to play the drums really, really hard and get a big sound out of them and things like that, and kind of exude that energy. Well, there's a way you can play hard and fast and powerfully without wrecking yourself. And so that was, to make a long story short, that was the big thing for me, getting away from just a really gnarly thing from right here. I mean, that feels bad, even just
doing it right now.
Even just demonstrating that feels bad. So yeah, loosening up and then thinking about things like how does somebody's arm move? How does if somebody's throwing a ball to somebody, what do they do in that elbow wind up and they throw, and that fluid motion like that? So okay, I'm gonna take that same principle to the drum set. Hey, it's looking for things like that you see across different kinds of physical activities, sports, hobbies, whatever kind of thing you would put that into, and seeing like, okay, what are like universal things that kind of make sense in nature, basically, like that. So that was a big part of it.
Cool. So what about off the drum kit? Is there anything you do with your lifestyle, whether that's exercise or diet or what have you? What do you do to try to keep yourself healthy to be able to continue playing the drums?
All those things you mentioned. Trying to have a good diet, or at least some semblance of one. I definitely try to get a lot of greens, a lot of leafy greens, cruciferous vegetables, so broccoli, cauliflower, asparagus and things like that, because a lot of those things you're looking for micronutrients with those, and so tart cherry juice, things like that are naturally anti-inflammatories, like the pill that a doctor would try to give you. So that aspect of it, but also, being an active person, I really, really enjoy doing yoga. I like cycling. I mean, honestly, I mostly do it, going to the grocery store or different things like that. But I really like playing hockey. I really love surfing. Different things like that to try to stay active away from the kit as well. And then doing exercise with, like dumbbells, resistance bands, things like that. But one of the biggest kind of tips I can give is if you have access to a pull-up, chin-up bar, something like that, practice just hanging for a little bit, a few times a day with your, thumbs disengaged, just dead monkey hang like that, because that really helps out a lot with the shoulders especially. But yeah, just being active, trying to take care of yourself.
Yeah, trying to stay active, trying to have a good diet. And you make a good point about the anti-inflammatory diet, because if you are already managing low levels of inflammation in your body, then when you do get an injury that causes inflammation, you might be a little better able to get rid of it more quickly, right? Instead of having it build up. So
exactly. Well, and that's one of those things, not to sound too like hippy-dippy to people, but there are a lot of things in nature that provide things like that, and fortunately now there's a lot more information available about things like that. Yeah, about cherry juice or asparagus or whatever it is, different kinds of things like that. So it's out there, use it.
Good stuff. So we have no comments from the crowd at this point, so I guess at this point we will wrap it up. So I want to thank you, John, for joining me today in the booth. And thanks to all of you out there for watching me, Dr. Nadia Azar, and John Clardy of Terra Milos on Drum Talk TV. Stay tuned. We have a lot more interviews coming up with me and the rest of the Drum Talk TV